welcome everybody to the final live quantum alignment show of the year, or if we're going to be more dramatic, of the decade. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and this week I have a special treat for you guys. I am going to be, now I'm not going to really say co-hosting because I'm really going to let Rebekkah do most of the talking, because you guys have heard me for the last couple of weeks really talk about the human design and the energies necessary to calibrate yourself as we move into 2020. Rebekkah Hanson, who is a world-renowned astrologer as well as a human design specialist, is going to be sharing with you in this next hour the astrology of 2020 and how the human design, your human design or human design energies are going to impact the astrology and what you need to do to get the most out of 2020. So she's got a lot of information for you, so make sure you have pen and a paper. I will make sure, I'm sorry, I forgot to do this before we got started. I'll make sure that you get a copy of the slides when we're done. Is that all right, Rebekkah? I should ask you so that you can.
I wasn't planning on sharing my slides, but I'll reconsider that. If there's people that really need them.
Good. So what we're really saying is take good notes. That's what we're really saying. Take good notes. Yeah. You're gonna want to hear everything and just make sure you're ready to take good notes. And without further ado, I'm just gonna stand aside, chime in periodically, and let Rebekkah share with you guys what you need to do to be ready for 2020 to make it a powerful, catalytic, transformative year for your personal growth and evolution. Rebekkah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, every time I hear the word world renowned, I blush.
Aw, that's like, good. Oh. You're humble, but own it.
Oh my goodness. I do know that I've gotten emails from people that are, in other countries that are on here. So we are covering a big, huge space.
And we're all under the same sky, so.
Yeah, and what I would say is, Karen, I'm going to consider this kind of a tag team effort.
Okay.
Because my primary language is definitely astrology, and now that you have rewritten the descriptions of the human design, and I totally identify with the vibratory projection of words, and you are such a master at that. So I'm hoping that you will just jump in at any time, and it will be a team effort.
All right, deal.
Anybody that has any questions, please pay attention to what slide number you're on and write that down. And if we have time at the end, hopefully we will, I can go back to that particular slide. I will say I'm not going to cover any questions on personal charts. And I also want to say that I probably will be covering some politics, and not that I'm going to get political, but that plays such a huge part in our society today that it would be negligent of me to keep it out. I will also say I've got an astrology friend that said, she said to me one day, she said, only somebody with 5 planets in Scorpio would watch politics as a sport. But I will also say in my behalf that if I'm watching a documentary on earthquakes or volcanoes or whatever, that's where my mind goes as well as to the astrology. So we have that. I'm going to jump right in here and start sharing my screen with a minute here. Allow Zoom. Zoom has changed this. Open system preferences. Oh, Karen.
If you hit the share button, will that work?
I did hit the share button. Let me go back and start again.
Yeah, try that. If not, I can pull them up. They'll just won't be in the same order as you.
Yeah, I share. Oh, I don't like this at all. Can you see my screen?
Cannot see your screen.
Not yet.
Okay.
You have to usually select which screen you want, and that might be what, like if you have more than one window up.
It says open system preferences.
Oh, weird. Well, let me just switch over to the ones you sent me
Oh
this
man,
morning.
I don't like that because I totally allow Zoom, open system preferences, and select security privacy to grant access. Oh, okay. I had some juicy things that I added besides what I sent you because I've been working on these this morning as well.
So as we go through them, can you just ad-lib them as we go, so where you know
I
you
will
want
give it a try.
to? Okay.
Because I have these all here in front of me. Oh, and you know, I may just do my own class later on this in order to get all this in if anybody is interested. What I will say is that when I do a class, I send a note out on my from my list, and that's on Abundance Astrologer. So, okay.
We'll just flow with it.
The perfectionist in me has got her feather.
I know. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're in a disruptive cycle, so nothing's going according to plan. All right.
Okay, so with this, can you click? There you go.
Oh. Oh, you did all the cool stuff. All right.
I did, which is why I wanted to be doing this myself. But you know, whatever. I will say that we're definitely in a turning point for the planet, and truth is, you know, it's being revealed, and it's not always pleasant. It's really tough at times. So I also wanted to add that all these charts that I'm going to put up here are in Greenwich, England time, which is like London. So if you wanted to look at exact moon times, you would have to pull it up for your area and time zone. Okay. When we are looking at next year, one of the things that really popped in for me was that the numerology shows up. Now, most of the time when I do a class, I don't mention a lot about the numerology. Sometimes I will, sometimes I don't. This year, it plays a huge part. So 2, 4, and 8 are numbers that are parts of the manifesting triad in numerology. 2 is about creating through partnerships, whether it's marriage, whether it's business partnerships, whether it, you know, whatever that looks like. 4 is about getting really grounded and pulling in that divine energy. And 8, if you turn 8 on its side, it forms the infinity number, and it identifies as above, so below. And, you know, it's about order and stability, patience, discipline, getting grounded, overcoming obstacles. And you're going to be, at least I was blown away as to how many times this showed up in our presentation today and for the next year. So let's review the solar eclipse. If you'll go to the next slide. Karen was really careful and really thorough in her last 2 presentations about this eclipse coming up, and I kind of wanted to go over it. Next slide. And explain to you guys that in human design, we look at the centers, which are I know there's a lot of people that are followers of mine that aren't real clear on a lot of this, so I'm going to cover a few basics here. The centers are the geometric shapes within the diamond on the center of that wheel. The gates are the numbers around those centers, and the channels are the spaces that connect those gates. And on the outside of the wheel, in between that kind of a purplish color and green color, you see the gates that correspond with the gates on the body graph. The next wheel in between the green dash and the red dash are the astrology signs. And then, of course, inside of that, you have the planetary placements, which planetary placements change all the time. Our universe is in constant movement, and these planets float through these zodiac signs and through the gates. Now, keep your eye. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you'll click again, Karen. So when you bring in the astrology and look at the astro wheel, if you will, and notice how the sun aligns up with gate 58 in that blue capsule above it. If you're looking at the top part of the chart, that is in Capricorn. And I'm also going to be making reference, if you'll click, to the wheel on the inside, which is the numbers that are 1 through 12 counterclockwise. Those are the houses. Now, I'm not going to get into houses at all, but I will use, I'm sure I'll use those as a reference point when I say look at house number 10. You're going to be looking at the Capricorn house. So if you'll click again. Now, this is the, Karen showed, in the last program, Karen showed the chart on the left and explained the various different planets, which you have the sun, the moon, the south node, and Jupiter, all in gate 58, which is the gate of joy. Those planets are in the astrology wheel, are all in Capricorn, and in here is the 10th house. So if you'll click, the piece I wanted to add here, and click again, the piece I wanted to add here is that Uranus makes a trine to the sun and the moon. That's 120 degrees. And in astrology, that is a beautiful, beautiful, easygoing aspect. And with Uranus, Uranus can be a very erratic sort of planet, but it also brings in innovation and sudden bursts of inspiration. Uranus is in gate 27, and Chiron squares this aspect. So you're going to be looking at, there's probably going to be some, I mean, who doesn't get triggered about childhood memories around the holidays?
When you're with your mother.
When you're with your family and yes. All of that, right? Chiron is in gate 25. And Karen, if you'll explain gate 27 and gate 25.
So the gate 25 is the energy where we connect to our higher self and we learn to surrender to our divine role in the cosmic plan, meaning it's a place where you connect to the bigger meaning of your life. And of course, with it being in the Chiron position, it's a place that we have the potential to forget, struggle, or need to master it more clearly. So in the context of going home for the holidays, remember that even if your mother triggers you, that you have a higher purpose here, and part of that is to bring love to the world around you, including your family. Or sometimes, in this case, because it also connects to the heart of who you are, sometimes you have to set boundaries and say, I love you and I need to honor myself in this situation as well, which is part of what can come up. The 27, which can be an interesting energy that plays along with the scenario that we're going to be in, is the energy of responsibility, accountability, obligation. It is the place where a lot of our family values are held. It can also be guilt. And so when we're looking at this in the context of like, we're all going to be hanging out together, maybe there's going to be a little too much wine or sugar or whatever, and it's close quarters. If we set a boundary for ourselves or we take care of ourselves in the way that we need to preserve our own well-being, you might have to also in part and parcel play with the guilt piece and learn to transform that into a place where you're either not feeling guilty or you're allowing your higher self to be of service to your family and your loved ones in a healthy way.
That's beautiful. See, I knew I had to tag team you in here.
I just have to throw this in here. I actually really love being with my family. I'm totally being tongue-in-cheek. And so just, yeah, they're crazy and I adore them.
Well, and I mean, it's in the whole picture, in the whole scheme of things, it's a beautiful progression of being challenged through discord for us to grow.
Yes, good. You said it best. There you go.
And I just love that. Okay, next slide. We'll see what we have up here. See, I knew. Okay, we are going to flow with this now because this is out of alignment here with what I've got.
Uranus is doing its thing.
It sure is. And what I want to add is that I think, you know, Ra had nailed it, I think, when he said that this whole change is going to be finished by 2027, because Uranus moves out of Taurus in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And Taurus is all about looking at your values and that sort of thing. So if you will click and click again and again. And I wanted you to kind of explain a little bit about these two gates here that are, I mean, this is the lunar eclipse that's going to happen January 10th, and it's going to be a big one. It's huge.
And so one of the things you said in one of our classes this week is you said a lunar eclipse is like a new moon on steroids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think when we look at these energies being highlighted in this eclipse cloud, wave, whatever you want to call it, the 53 and the 54 are both initiating energies. And they're energies that cause things to show up in your life. And when they show up, you have to make a choice about what you're going to do with them. And depending on whatever the choice is, you're either going to shrink and run away and hide and shut down, or you're going to go, okay, here's this thing. It's showing up. It's giving me an idea. I'm going to respond to it. And I'm going to use the word respond, not so much in the traditional human design generator way, but I'm just using it as a plain old straight up verb. I'm going to respond to this situation, and I'm going to use it as a catalyst for my inspiration and for my ideas, and begin to, and this is the most important piece because it's at the root center, which is the very bottom of the chart. I'm going to begin the work of setting the stage for what I'm going to build. So it's not, oh, I have an idea, I'm going to go make it happen. Because if you try to use that as your strategy, it's not going to work no matter what your type, because that's not how it works with this energy. But if instead you go, okay, this moment is now this powerful catalytic seminal moment, and based on whatever's showing up, I'm going to start putting into play the actions necessary to be ready for the unfolding of whatever this inspiration is.
So click and click. And we're going to be looking at the north and south nodes. Click. And what I wanted to point out here, you know, the nodes have been in Cancer and Capricorn for quite a while now, and it's definitely there's a polar opposite. There's a play between Cancer, which is nurturing and home, and the Capricorn part about being practical. It's about how you show up in your job. It's about occupation, honor, and fame. And I would say that, you know, here's where politics comes into it, because the United States and England have both been in the spotlight in a huge way. And the United States' birth chart is Cancer. The sun is in Cancer, July the 4th.
And it's a projector. It's a 1-3 projector by design.
And Southern England is Capricorn. So when you look at those two, it's no wonder they are being hit. And you can kind of use that as a metaphor as to how these interact in your own life. I will also say, and I don't know if this is on these slides or not, but the south node, when I look at a south node in a person's astrology chart, to me, that is what they came in this life with. That's what they know the best. That's where they're the most comfortable. The direction that they're going towards is the north node, which in this chart is on the bottom in Cancer in the 4th house. And that's the direction that you are kind of trying to morph into during this lifetime. Now, there's a high and a low energy to everything, and the low energy to the south node, because that's what you're most familiar with. The low energy of the south node is definitely manipulation and control and power struggles. With this south node falling in on all this action that's going on in Capricorn, you can see how power plays come into the picture. And I haven't even gotten started on Pluto. Pluto brings that in spades. I'll tell you, it's huge. So if you'll move to the next slide and the next. This chart is from January 12th, which I took everything out except the nodes because I wanted to show this, but this is when the exact conjunction of Pluto and Capricorn happened. Click again. I will say, astrologer, I can't tell you. I follow a lot of astrologers. I sit in a lot of classes, and this has been talked about for a long, long time. And what I would like you to notice, and I've kind of heard whispers of there being a global meditation on this day, and I would encourage everybody to look that up. I'm sure there's some information on that on the internet, but it's a beautiful, beautiful time to be doing a global meditation towards peace, towards centering, towards joy. Next slide. So what I want to point out here is that Saturn, most people have heard of Saturn return. Saturn returns to its original spot every 29 years. Pluto circles the sun it takes 248 years. So it's in a sign for over 20 and a half years. You can see the red star highlights Pluto. I will also say, Karen, if you'll click, that Ceres plays a huge, huge part in this picture. Pluto was reduced from a planet to a dwarf planet. Ceres was promoted from an asteroid to a dwarf planet. Now there's like 5 dwarf planets. Eris is one of them, Make is one of them, as well as Haumea, I think it is. There's a lot of, when I'm doing individual sessions with people, I look at a whole lot of other asteroids and so forth and how they intermingle. But for this particular presentation, I want you to pay attention to Ceres because it plays a huge part in this Pluto-Saturn conjunction that we got coming up January the 12th. So next slide, please. This is the astrology for that conjunction. And if you will look, click please. If you will look again, Ceres is at 22 degrees Capricorn, right conjunct with Saturn and Pluto. And click. I will say that Ceres is such a saving grace. Ceres is a warm, fuzzy sort of energy. It deals with how we nurture ourselves, how we nurture others. It's about a deep motherly love. Rules agriculture. It's the goddess of harvest, and it's the co-ruler of Cancer. So it definitely plays into this Cancer-Capricorn polarity that we've got going on. Click again. and again and again. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that there are shadow sides to it. Click again, Karen. And I'm not going to name these off because of the power of the spoken word. What I would like for you guys to pay attention to is that when you feel yourself being pulled into this lower vibration of the Ceres, it's just indicative of needing to switch that around, start nurturing yourself again, and pull yourself up out of that lower energy into the higher energy of Ceres. There is a lot of tension going on. You don't have to be an astrologer to get that piece. It's all around us. It's going to be highlighted, especially January is a intense month. Mm-hmm. And because of all of what's going on in the sky, we do have the tools to work with it. So I don't want to focus on all of how hard it is, because hard is a word that is right there parallel with Capricorn and Saturn. And you click again. So when we look at this, I wanted to look at Pluto's previous journeys through Capricorn. And of course, it takes almost 250 years to go completely around. The last time Pluto was in Capricorn was in the 1700s. Saturn wasn't there because Saturn takes 29 years. For some reason, Saturn didn't align up. Now, in the 1500s, Pluto was in Capricorn. It was conjunct with Capricorn, if you will, with Saturn, if you will click. You can see in the 1500s, this little insert picture here is you can see a packed house in Capricorn. And if you also look, you have 2s, 4s, and 8s. You have Mercury at 2 degrees, Capricorn Saturn at 4 degrees, Ceres at 8 degrees, the Sun is at 22, 2 plus 2 equals 4, Chiron is at 26, 2 and 6 equals 8. And when I saw all this, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is a huge, huge manifesting number and year that we're dealing with. Now, 4 degrees Capricorn, again, is gate 28, and that's the same degree and same gate as the December eclipse.
You meant gate 58, right?
Gate 58, what did I say?
28.
Degree 58? I'm being thrown off by these slides.
You are good. You are doing fabulous. I'm holding space for you. I know you're having to wing it. It's okay. Your natural brilliance is showing.
The point here is that joy is a theme. This gate 58 of joy plays through. It showed up in the 1500s, and it's showing up today. Just the fact that the eclipse starts it out in that area. Also during, let me find my notes here. During the 1500s was the era of time when Martin Luther came into play. So there is a transformation of, at that time, it was the spirituality, or more accurately, probably religion, that took a big shift. Today, my feeling is that it is definitely moving us spiritually. It's being manifested by all the ugly showing up, which is definitely true of Pluto. Pluto is like, you have to walk through the depths of Hades before you can really ascend into that, perfect area where you can really soar. But the bottom line is joy. We've got to hang on to that joy. In the 1200s, when the two were conjunct, they were conjunct in the gate 64, and that was at 26 degrees Capricorn. And
I just want you to know that in the 1500s, around this time, the Germans came out with beer purity laws, which is also important. Things you learn on Google.
I know, right? That's funny. Okay, click. Yeah, Ceres was part of that. Click again. Okay, this is kind of an adventure.
You're doing good.
This is the chart for the exact conjunction in the 1500s, and you'll notice what all took place in gate 58. I will also say that Neptune and Venus were conjunct. It was a beautiful time. You had Uranus down in the second house here and in Taurus at that time, which is a mirror of what is happening right now. And it is aspecting at 4 degrees. It's aspecting that conjunction of Pluto and Saturn. So next slide.
So also just the Inquisition ended in 1515 or around that time.
Okay. Cool. I know we've got a lot of history geeks on here as well. It's too bad that we just all can't have like a whole week to talk about
I know, we need to just all hang out with good German beer. Okay.
Okay, next slide. In the 1200s, this occurred in gate 58. And you can kind of see the Sun, the North Node, and Jupiter were all in that area, even though the actual conjunction of Pluto and Saturn took place at 26 degrees, which of course 26 adds up to 8. So manifesting times, Next slide. I'm trying to keep an eye on my time too here.
You're good.
Next slide. I just love, Karen, thank you so much for playing this song at the conference that we had. It was just so touching to me, and I frequently play it. And I will tell everybody here, do what you have to keep yourself, your core stabilized and centered, because there's a lot going on around us, and we can't lift other people up unless we keep ourselves together.
And this song, if you have never heard this song, you can go find it on YouTube. Just look up Rising Appalachia, and the title of the song is Resilient. It'll make you sob. And it's really sort of the anthem, I think, for the next year. We need to all be singing this.
And that's why I wanted to include the lyrics here, because it says it so beautifully. It's amazing. Okay, next slide. And again. We're going to look at the June and July eclipses. What is really, all of these, I could do a whole class on just each one of these eclipses. Keep that in mind. We're looking at hanging on to compassion and being visionary and recalibrating. The full moon in July happens to conjunct the United States' birth chart. It's going to be interesting to see what happens during that time for our country here. And I know we've got an international audience listening in, but I kind of wish we weren't in the news so much, but it's a fact. So next slide.
So just real quick, just looking at the Cancer new moon eclipse in June, one of the things that I love, this gate 15 brings us a really interesting energy, because it is part of the energy that is natural order. And it is also the gate of extremes. And we forget sometimes that extremes in rhythm are a natural part of natural cycles. So if you think about some healthy forests, particular conifer forests, they actually need the extreme event of like a wildfire to release the seeds for the next generation. Mm-hmm. Or if you think about cataclysmic natural events, these extreme events also create in us not only an opportunity for renewal, but a compassionate response. So it's from extreme events that compassion gets triggered, and that compassion, because it's located on the G center, begins to change the direction that we take ourselves collectively, because it's a collective energy.
I think the next slide shows the body graph.
Oh, got it. Okay. So, wow. Dun, dun, dun. So, yeah.
And what really is pointed out to me here is that as an astrologer, if you look at the fourth house, the new moon is at 0 degrees Cancer. The number 0 in numerology is about divine protection. And it is making an aspect to, it's an out of sign aspect, but it's making an aspect to Mars. So yes, we do have divine protection, but having a square, which is somewhat of a difficult aspect to Mars, you can, I guess if I were to advise somebody and I saw that this aligned up in their chart, I would say just make sure that when you feel your temper starting to rise, take a step back, nurture yourself, calm yourself down, so that you don't do or say something that you will regret later. Because that could very easily be a trigger for people. But the power is in the awareness.
So I just want to add to this. If we look not at the aspects that you've highlighted with your blue here, but if we look at the fact that the Earth is grounded in the 10, and of course the South Node's in the 10, and then we have the 20, the Venus highlighting the 20, that forms a configuration that we call the verbal gunslinger, which means when tempers flare, our tongues are going to betray us if we're not breathing in the other room and settling ourselves down and going for a walk around the block with the dogs before you respond to whatever shows up.
Really good point. Really good point. I like that. Next slide. This is the 4th of July full moon eclipse on the United States' birthday, and you will see that they are in gate 29, or excuse me, 39 and 38, and that once again you have a squared aspect astrologically, but this time these two are squared to Chiron. So you're looking at some of these old wounds, and possibly from childhood even, or I've often seen this coming through from past lives, and I know not everybody identifies with past lives, but it's another time for wounds to come up, opportunities to heal, and the beauty of Chiron is that once those wounds are healed, you're able to help heal other people. Mm-hmm. And not that you're doing the healing, you're able to, whether it's hold space, but there's the key is that you understand the feeling of those wounds, and that piece of understanding is what helps other people through it. That's when you become the teacher. And Chiron is in gate 17. So you want to talk about gate 17? Karen?
Yeah, so the gate 17 in traditional human design is sometimes called the gate of opinions, and it's a place where, if you really look at the function of this gate, it's a place where we're throwing out possibilities. We're throwing out options, and the higher purpose of this gate is to really begin to explore other possibilities and to use this energy as a catalyst to not lock yourself into, oh, it's this way, or oh, this is a negative opinion that I have, but to rather go, okay, what's possible here? And to use this as an expanding energy. And when we see this chart again, we see Venus is lighting up the 16, which is part of that same energy flow. We also have, sorry, is that right? Yeah. And then we also have, of course, the 15, the North Node still with the 15 energy, which is still part of that same logical sequence. There are lots of elements in this chart that, again, are pointing to, yes, there's a potential for tension. Yes, there's triggering. But these energies, especially when we look at the 38 energy, and the 39 both, they're triggering us to find greater meaning, to find other possibilities, to expand upon what's really valuable, to explore what's really worth fighting for. And with this 39 energy, to look at what else is possible in the way of creating abundance in the world. Our triggering is going to help us see other ways in which we could be accessing infinite potential, resources for other people, resources for ourselves, abundance for everyone. We're redefining values and abundance in a big way with this energy.
And it's such a I mean, you don't have the opportunity to recalibrate unless you recognize what you're trying to recalibrate.
Totally.
And
totally.
That comes sometimes through stress. Usually you don't have recalibration or that transformation without that stress factor there to start with.
And actually yesterday I had the great blessing of interviewing Irvin Laszlo, who is a 2-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee, who is getting ready to release a new book in March called Reconnecting to the Source. And one of the things he talks about, he's a philosopher he's an evolutionary philosopher, and he talks about that we're really in a place that he calls a bifurcation in our destiny, and that we are in a place where collectively we're going to have to choose which way are we going to go, and that all of this tension is a natural phenomenon in evolution, that if you didn't have this tension, you wouldn't have evolution. So it's a really beautiful time if you can take a longer term view and go, oh, we're in this stress point, but the stress point is really about making a really big decision about, okay, do we want to devolve or do we want to evolve? And I think, we're all voting for evolution.
Yay.
Right?
Yeah. Next
yes.
slide. And next. Eclipses shake things up. There's just no doubt about it. And with this particular, the eclipses aligning up at the same time that all of these other players are conjunct and so forth, it's it's like you can't ignore it. It's just in your face. It is there. Next slide. And just to look at this, yes, it is. There's a Buddhist saying that eclipses magnifies the new and full moon by like 1,000. I mean, the energy is just that much magnified. And most astrologers will say that the time leading up to an eclipse and a time after the eclipse can be anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And as an astrologer, I also look at, if in the sky, that point of that particular eclipse, like say for instance, it's at 4 degrees Capricorn, 3 months, 4 months down the road, if there's a planet that comes to that place where that 4 degrees, even though the eclipse has moved off it, when there's a planet that comes to that particular degree in the zodiac, lots of times, and I've found it more often than not, something will be triggered that was a theme of the eclipse that was on that point. Does that make sense? I mean, it's huge. You want to go to the next one? So I don't know what more to say than this. I'm not going to go through here.
I'm like what? No, what, number 5?
I mean, I can't emphasize enough how important these are, and it's even more important now. And if you'll click again, invest in astrology.
That was subtle.
I would say, and I chose not to do any promoting of any classes. I've kind of, I keep thinking I'm retired and I'm not, but I've had a lot of people request classes from me, and I'll probably cave into that. I will send out an email to my list and probably advertise on Karen's newsletter. But also, Karen, you have a class coming up in January that can help people with this.
I do. I have a program called the 2020 Quantum Activation, which is a brand new program that's going to be using all of the brand new human design language and going through your chart using that new language and looking at it in the context of conscious creation. Because what I think, and I think, you know, I've been talking about this in the last 2 shows, is that the piece that keeps us most resilient is the connection to our authentic self. Because when we're not connected with the true story of who we are weakening our position, because we end up spending vital energy trying to maintain an identity that isn't true to who we are. And we put ourselves at risk for making choices that are not really authentically aligned with what we need and want. We run the risk of not being able to trust ourselves because we don't know who we are. We run the risk of trying to create something based on false agendas that are sometimes even rooted in self-sabotage or protecting or hiding yourself from your real purpose and your destiny. And when you can close that gap between who you are and how you're living your life, it connects you not only to a much greater source of power, which I think power as an archetype is something we're exploring deeply next year on multiple levels, whether it's your own personal empowerment, whether it's leadership in our collective structures like government. And if you are disempowering yourself by not being aligned, you're going to burn out, you're going to struggle with resiliency, and it's going to be hard for you to stay in the flow of the change that's coming our way. And so it was really, I felt a really strong pull this year that we needed to go back to basics. It's not basics in human design because it's all new language, but go back to revisiting the basics with higher frequency language and begin to craft a better personal narrative about who you are and your purpose in life, so you can really become resilient and weather these changes, and not just weather them, but be able to influence the outcome, which is, I think, the piece you and I have both been saying over the last couple, you know, you've been saying in class and you've said it so beautifully today and the last couple of weeks when I've been talking about this, is we have the power here to influence the outcome. And we've been training for this for a long time, and we're not victims of the planets here.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. We do have the tools to get through this. And when you look around at the people that don't have these tools, that are going to need our support. Now, I don't, you know, there's a saying about when you discover a hammer, the whole world becomes a nail. I'm not trying to imply here that you go out and start saving people, but people are going to need a shoulder to lean on.
Yes. And they're going to need people who are, it's not even so much about doing. This is the piece that I keep telling people. It's not about, oh, I'm going to go save everybody. It's that you're going to be holding a frequency of energy that is going to be very much like a tide. And as JFK says, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. If enough of us are holding this energy of alignment, and that energy of alignment is that connection to source, that connection to the true nature of who we are as human beings. And if we look at the heart of who we are as human beings, we see that we as living beings are designed to take our direction from love, take our direction from compassion, to take our direction from our connection to source, to take our direction from, you know, proper aligned empowerment that serves not only yourself but the greater good, to take our direction from our creative experience in the world, to take our direction from our own physical capacity to give and do and share who we are with the world, and to take our direction with the understanding and the knowingness that if we know how to be this way, we'll get everything we need. We'll get all the support that we need, all the resources we need, all the information we need, all the inspiration we need to take ourselves in a direction that's going to serve the unfolding of the cosmic plan, that generously biased in our favor energy that is the cosmos, that's really
So Karen, will you click on to the next slide? For some reason you cut out there.
Karen appears to be frozen. Hopefully she's going to come back. So until Karen comes back, there she's back now.
Okay. I just said the most amazing stuff. Did you get none of it?
we got Most
We got most of it, except for like the last 2 seconds.
Yeah, if you'll click to
All
the
right.
next, I have,
Yes.
and the next one. I just wanted to point out, you know, I was raised in North Dakota on a farm. My grandfather did his planting by the phases of the moon. And as I moved into discovering astrology, which was a long time ago, decades, the most poignant thing for me was aligning with these moon cycles. And I'm not going to go through here and read it. If you'll go to the next slide, please. In keeping in mind that we've only got about 10 minutes left here, and I certainly have enough slides. We're only like about 40, and I've got another 10 more to go. I'm trying to squeeze it all in here. Certainly this would have gone smoother had I figured it out beforehand, but aligning with these moon cycles and being aware power is, you know, knowledge is power. This is what's going to help us get through all of this. And it's the most beautiful roadmap that we have. So next slide. And retrogrades. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, clearly, because I don't have a lot of time. So you're welcome to start clicking ahead. But if you'll notice, Mercury is retrograde 3 times. It's always retrograde during, 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a time. Everybody curses Mercury retrograde. It's more of a nuisance, I will say, depending on what else it aligns up with. I did want to talk more on the Venus star point because Venus is retrograde May 13th through June. And if you'll click to the next slide. And the next one. And click again. That's the February to March retrograde, and the next picture is June to July, and then we have October to November. My intention was to go through the gates and explain more of this, but I think it's more important to kind of move forward with this. I'm hoping to get to some questions if we can. I don't know if we will or not. If you'll click again. And again. Just keep in mind that retrogrades are here to give us an opportunity to look back at what has already happened. And with Mars, it is re-examining your actions that you've taken, a chance to redo those actions. With Jupiter here, it is a chance to look at the spirituality piece. Jupiter is going to be retrograde from May through September. And Venus is retrograde every 9 months or so, 9.5 months, I think it is, if you want to skip forward. And during the time when Venus is retrograde, you will always have a Venus star point. If you click twice, this star point happens at 13 degrees. Again, you have the number 4 because 1 and 3 is 4. And it happens in gate 35. 5, and I automatically go to numerology. When I'm driving past a house address, I am adding up the numbers to find out what kind of house that is. That's kind of how geeky I am. So gate 35, 3 and 5 is 8 to me, right?
Right.
Next slide. This particular Venus, and you can click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, maybe 7. This particular Venus star point happens at a really beautiful, beautiful point. Certainly we can go back and talk about those points. I don't think we really have time, but what I wanted to mention to you, and this is a slide from a class that I gave on Venus and values, and we went more into the Venus star point. The Venus star point sets up a cycle that is an 8-year cycle. Back in when it was at 3 degrees Scorpio, it aligned with my sun, and it sets up a period for a long time of where you want to focus on the theme that happened when it happened at that particular degree. At that time, when it landed on my sun, I took myself on a really, really nice vacation. This year, it's going to be at 13 degrees Gemini in June. And that 8-year cycle, if you look at it from the Earth's point of view, and you look at how it manifests in the sky, if you'll click next, it makes a beautiful mandala. This is the pattern that it forms. This particular major Venus age is replicated every 1250 years. And there's a lot of YouTube videos online that you can watch and actually see how this is made when the Venus is conjunct the Earth and so forth. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful formation. And once again, 1250 adds up to 8. Just saying.
Cool.
And so this year it's in Gemini, and it's going to be setting up a feeling of Gemini is so playful, and it's almost a it's very charming, it's very lighthearted, it's very spontaneous and so forth. And this is going to be when I'm doing somebody's natal chart, and I'm always looking for where the Venus star point was when they were born, because that sets up a theme for their whole life. Now, yes, it keeps changing, but you know, you keep looking for these various themes. And next slide. And the next slide. And keep going. One more. And I just get chills looking at those images. You know, negate the chaos, uplift the negative, show up at the table again and again and again. So that concludes the slideshow. And yay, we did it.
You did it. Good job.
Congratulations, Rebekah.
I have a task on learning how to, I can't believe that Zoom has changed there. I mean, I used to be able just to share and I'm fine, you know, but not now.
Yeah, and there's probably, I don't know, system upgrade. But I think the point that I kind of, and I know if you guys have questions, post them in the chat. We'll see if we can get to like one or two. But I think the thing that, again, just strikes at the heart of me, even listening to you and having the luxury of being able to listen to you instead of being the one talking. Again, we have the power to influence our experience. And I have shared this with you guys a couple of times over the last actually all year long. I just keep getting called to go back and reading Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, which is the story of a man who loses everything in the Holocaust and yet is able to retain his connection to his joy. And I'm not saying that's extreme, and I don't want to get into predictive cycles about it's going to be that bad, but there's a message there about nothing in your external can take you off that mark if you're connected to it. And it is ultimately, I mean, if you take the long-term view on Viktor Frankl's life, he came out of that experience and he was saved multiple times by the most bizarre synchronistic experiences. You know, he really like missed being killed so many times and came out of that experience as a very wise teacher who woke people back up to the power of their purpose. So. Yeah.
And he's been such a role model, I mean, ever since then. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
So good. All right. So we have questions showing up. Cindy, I think we'll just take one from the chat perhaps and one from Facebook.
Okay. So one from the chat, that was Heather asked, what if a person's north node is in Cancer and south node is in Capricorn? Does this affect the impact of the July eclipse?
Absolutely. Those themes will definitely come up for you. And Cancer is about nurturing. Capricorn is about keeping your mind on the goal, and sometimes that involves hard work to do it. And when you feel yourself being exhausted by the Capricorn energy, flip back into the Cancer energy and go home, nurture, be quiet, whatever it takes. For me, it's playing soft music and going for walks outside and you know, getting a massage, going to the spa, that sort of thing. Take care of yourself first so that you can actually do the work that is going to help you reach that goal that Capricorn is asking you to reach.
Now, Misty on Facebook says, where do I find out the themes for the previous eclipses? Like you were mentioning a lot about that eclipses run in cycles. Is there some place that she could go that you would recommend?
You know, you can come visit in my head. You know, that might be a good idea for a class. That there is no short answer to that, and I don't know of a website that will actually do that. Certainly you could Google it, you know, the themes of the north and south nodes. I do know that there are Facebook groups that address just the nodes. They're huge insight to our lives, and it's worth looking into for sure. The nodal axis is a place. It's not a hard planet, so to speak. It is where the elliptical of the sun, now this is going to get geeky, the elliptical of the sun as it circles the earth, and certainly it's the earth that circles the sun, but that imaginary line when the moon's elliptical path is not the same degree in declination. It can be 17 degrees higher, 15 degrees lower, or whatever. When that path intersects with the sun's path, the moon, as it is going above the sun's path, is the north node. When it's dipping below it, it's the south node. And so those nodal points change through the zodiac, and that's what gives the nodes being in different signs and different hexagrams. So looking at where these fell when you were born and where they currently are, and if that impacts your particular chart or body graph in any way, is definitely, it will impact you. So it's worth looking into, but I don't have time to go into whole. I mean, that's a weekend-long seminar.
I did post it. Dr. Serena had posted about, there was a Facebook event for the Global Meditation for January 12th.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Serena. Thank you.
I also posted, because I noticed on your slide, because M here said that she loved the Venus star point when you went, the last image from, so I did post the sophiavenus.com. I noticed you had that under that image that you had.
Yeah, I try to reference anytime I take it.
So that if they wanted to, but she said it is almost, it has the power to transmit.
That image, yes, it's quite beautiful.
And on, and if you can share later, Rebekah, what are the nodal Facebook groups, please?
Oh, we can go back in and post those for sure.
Yeah, I will look. You could probably search.
Yeah.
And find.
For sure.
But it was wonderful. Thank you. And
Even though I felt disconnected.
I didn't notice. You did very well. And Karen, yay you on being the slides. And it's like, wow, you guys are such a team. Good job.
Yes.
Well, Cindy, I have you to thank for saying it might be nice if somebody else had a copy of the slides as well. Thank you.
So good. So I just want to say again, thank you, Rebekah, for sharing your
Oh,
infinite wisdom with
thank
us.
you.
You guys, if you want to get on Rebekah's mailing list so that you can know what her next programs are and her next courses, if we can call her out of retirement, she keeps retiring, we keep calling her out. Her website is abundanceastrologer.com. So go there, get on her mailing list, because then you'll know if she does a Venus sequence class, or Venus star class, sorry, or node class, or 2020, or eclipses, or there's lots of things you could teach about next year. So thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to end, as I said, this is our last quantum alignment show for the year. This has been an incredible year, and we've just had, I just want to take a minute and acknowledge all the teachers we've had this year, because we've had so many amazing teachers and human design specialists come and share this year, and it's just been really beautiful to watch them all. If you've missed any of our shows, if you go to our Facebook page, Human Design for Everyone, on the left-hand side, there's a little tab and it says videos, and if you click on that tab, it'll take you to pages and pages of amazing videos. If you get bored next week when you're hanging out with your family and you want something interesting to do, go watch some of our videos. We've got really, really cool topics and titles there. There's also handouts and information. So great, great resource for you all. Last week I said we're in this corridor and we're walking towards the doorway that's going to take us into 2020. You're in the corridor right now. You can't get out of it. This is such an important time for you to continue to calibrate yourself towards your joy. And that joy, by the way, is not just joy, emotional joy. It's the joy of mastery, meaning we're entering into an era where we really do get to fulfill who we are in the most masterful way. So please, please, please give yourself the gift of taking a pause and really connecting with that beautiful essence of who you truly are, because that's what's going to keep you resilient through this amazing time that we're about to go through. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Take good care of yourselves. Be well. Breathe. Don't overdo the sugar and the wine. And Rebekkah, thank you so much.
Oh,
and you guys,
it's been a joy. Thank
we'll
you.
see you all next year. Bye.
Bye-bye.